Greetings, one and all, and welcome to Chase Freedom. I was reading an article that was sent to me by a friend. It's entitled, Are Anarcho-Capitalists Really Anarchists? I'll provide the link in the description so that you all can read it if you're really interested. But I don't read very much anarchist literature or things of that nature for reasons I'll get into in a bit. But this title really captured my interest. So I started reading the article, and it got to the point very quickly saying anarcho-capitalists claim to be anarchists because they say they oppose government. They use a dictionary definition of anarchism. However, this fails to appreciate that anarchism is a political theory. As dictionaries are rarely politically sophisticated things, this means they fail to recognize that anarchism is more than just opposition to government. End quote. So, yes, anarchy is more than simply opposing government, but mostly this is due to the magnitude of ambiguity and vagueness in this definition. As an ideology held by an individual, it would mean that, yes, the individual opposes government rule. But the dictionary definition of anarchy does mean in no uncertain terms that no government would be present in society. And then, of course, you must consider the actual application of anarchy. The author displays a certain disdain for private property, which is remarkable considering the advances in human wealth, lifespan, and population that have occurred since private property became common. Though I will take a moment to stress that any self-respecting anarchist who hates private property or whatever isn't going to run to the government to try and ban private ownership. Instead, they would put this idea out on the free market of ideas and argue valiantly for people to surrender their privately owned goods to the collective whole, or whatever. I predict this would ultimately fail, but I do applaud the effort. Differences in opinion are extremely healthy as long as government doesn't get involved to force one set of opinions on the side that hasn't been convinced of the arguments yet. But now we're getting to the core of the issue. Is anarcho-capitalism an oxymoron? Well, I just said that without government to force one set of ideals on one side or the other, there would be a free market of ideas. Let's take it a step further and say that without government to restrict the formation of contracts between consenting adults in the marketplace, there would be a free market economy. In short, if there were no government to restrict or influence decisions through force or threat of violence, there would be a true free market society. In other words, if there was anarchy, we would have laissez-faire capitalism in the truest sense of the word. So my argument is that the word anarcho-capitalism is not oxymoronic, rather it is redundant. There are a few points of contention that I need to address. For instance, the author defines capitalism as exploitation and private property. Then goes on to say, thus, opposition to government is a necessary but not sufficient condition for being an anarchist. You also need to be opposed to exploitation and capitalist private property. So, first off, exploitation is a loaded, baseless word, unless there's force involved, but we'll get into that in a different video. If there is no government and contracts may be freely formed at any time without impedance by consenting adults, any person getting a raw deal has simply made a mistake in allowing someone to pay them less than what they deserve. In other words, unless there were threats or violence involved, which is a whole other topic for discussion, the person getting the bad end of the deal agreed to that bad deal. Hopefully because they actually believed, for whatever reason, that the pay was worth more than their labor, even though that wasn't the case. Clearly they had the wrong information or something. But all rational transactions in a free market are mutually beneficial, and people who make irrational decisions that actually are of no benefit to them are punished for it. Live and learn. Yes, they may be getting ripped off, but there's a bright side. they got the job and someone else did not. The best part is they're free to leave and find a better place to work if they want. So I'll play a clip of a humorous explanation of mutually beneficial exchanges in a free market delivered by Jeffrey A. Tucker. As a disclaimer, I'm not related in any way to Jeffrey A. Tucker or the Mises Institute, though I do really like Austrian economics, and I do support that science. So really the only reason I'm showing this video is because it's funny and it fits in with the general message. So play that real quick.
To exchange one with another, it's different from just a pure gift. An exchange is a mutual gift giving. And that happens every time you're engaged in any commercial activity. And I can give you my most recent example, actually. Last night at 10 o'clock, I went into Taco Bell with $1.99 in my pocket. And I looked up at that menu and I thought, is there anything in this menu that's worth to me more than what I have in my pocket? And I looked up and I saw that enchilada, which brought back memories from childhood. And I could practically taste it. And of course, the picture was better than the reality, inevitably, but the reality is pretty great. And also, you can't eat a picture, so we don't complain. So I said to the lady, I said, listen, I have $1.99 in my pocket, and it's worth a lot to me in many ways, but your enchilada is worth even more to me than what I own. What about you? What's your sense? Is your enchilada worth, I know it's worth a lot to you, but do you think that my money might actually be worth even more than your enchilada? And she said to me, I'm so glad you brought up this point, because it is, in fact, worth more to me than my enchilada. And I said, well, why don't we just exchange? And that way, you will get a gift of my money, which is worth more than your enchilada, and I will get a gift, which is your enchilada, which is worth more than my money. And she said, that is a beautiful idea. And we exchanged with each other. I handed her the money, and she handed me this little plastic tray of mushy, beans with, and we looked in each other's eyes. And I said to her, thank you. And she said to me, no, thank you. And it was wonderful. And we were so happy afterwards, so much happier than we were before. And if you could repeat this 1 trillion times in the course of an hour all across the world, what would happen? What would happen? The world would be a very beautiful place. And that is, in fact, what is happening all the time. And that is the source of our happiness.
So I hope you enjoyed that. It made me laugh when I watched it. So moving on. Secondly, how can you say that in order to be an anarchist, one must be opposed to private property? This is completely contradictory. Anarchy is not, in fact, a theory of government, nor is it even a theory of how people ought to behave without government. It is, in fact, a social theory of how people might choose to behave and interact with others in the absence of governmental initiation of violence or threat of the initiation of violence. This means that saying someone must believe in some set of ideals in order to be an anarchist is preposterous, because anarchy is uninhibited choice to do or believe whatever you want, as long as you don't choose to hurt other people, which includes attacking their livelihood, aka personal property. And while I understand that anarchy means no government and people can do what they want, there just wouldn't be a central government. There would still be hierarchies. There would still be market preferences. People want to be safe. They want to feel secure. They want to know that when they come home, their house won't be ransacked or burned to the ground or whatever, So this is where defense agencies come in, but that is a topic for another video. This video is probably already too long, so I'm just gonna move on. When I make the video, eventually I'll come back and put the link in the description. But for now, we'll just say that defense law and order is something that could be addressed by the free market, and we'll leave it at that for now. So if there were no government and your neighbor thought they owned their house and wanted to live in it by themselves and didn't want to share, you have no right to go take it from them by force. It's immoral to take what isn't yours without the consent of the owner. That's called stealing. And the grand majority of people don't like being stolen from. Of course, people would try to steal from others in a free society like they do today in our not-so-free society. But there would be ways to deal with this, like I just said. The long and the short of it is that an anarchist society is simply what the people living in the society would make of it, whether that includes private property or not. Another point of contention may be that capitalism only applies to the economy, while anarchy applies to everything. Right? This would mean that pure laissez-faire capitalism is not the same as anarchy, and my arguments are thusly invalidated. But from my perspective, capitalism does include everything in the same way anarchy would. Let me explain. Time is a resource. All right, think about that for a second. It's a scarce resource of which most people wish they could have more, but can't. And because we exist in time, everything ages. Every task takes time to accomplish, and every good takes time to produce. So what are the consequences of this? Well, because time is a valuable, scarce resource, and it affects literally every meaningful thing in our lives, we must recognize that everything has a value of some kind, even if it is only the cost or benefit of doing something else with your time, other than what you're doing presently. It can also be said that all things of value are a part of the economic processes of our daily lives. Thereby, everything is a part of the economy. Thus, capitalism is all-inclusive. Finally, if capitalism is defined as a system in which there is no governmental interference in the economy, and we can prove via the value of time that everything meaningful in our lives can be considered a part of the economy or of economic processes, we can definitively say that laissez-faire capitalism, in the truest sense of the word, is anarchy.
Inconceivable!
And with that, I'll leave you to think and decide for yourself. If you decide that I'm wrong, please let me know why. If you think I'm right, please let me know why. If you liked the video, please hit that like button. And if you didn't like the video, you should try unmuting your speakers so that you can actually hear it. Okay, thank you for watching. And remember, never stop chasing freedom.